What's going on, boys? Smelly Jelly here with another post-theater sit-down. I just got done watching Anthony Diblasi's Malum. It is a remake of his 2014 film Last Shift. I remember when the news dropped that this was being remade, I was a little skeptical at first because I was like, this movie isn't even 10 years old. It's a fresh movie still, and it's still very young. Why are we remaking it again? Then you kind of dive deep into his reasons for it, and he just basically it's more of a re-envisioning. I feel like that's a way more appropriate term for it. He wanted to take the higher budget and the higher production and give us his originally intended idea for the film. And it's safe to say that he delivered on that. When I went into this, I didn't want it to be like one for one. Because sometimes, especially remakes for like an older film, I'm okay with it being just one for one, brush it up a little bit, re-envision it for the newer audience. I did not want this. There was no need for that for this movie. I wanted him to stick to his word and just give us, more on the lore and the story established in the original film. And he delivers. I think some of the key scenes, they had to have been one for one, and I was okay with that. But for the most part, a lot of the scenes, he's twisting it up a bit, changing some of the moments of suspense, the twists. Other scenes are just new outright, and I really appreciated that. At that point when I realized, he is kind of just there's some new stuff in here that I didn't see in Last Shift. I knew the bare minimum I would be satisfied with this movie. It'd be like a light satisfaction, but he does take it a step further. With Last Shift, look, you watch so many horror movies and you eventually just get unfazed by the scariness. You start to watch them for the craft and appreciate just what goes into them. Obviously, you could also watch the dumber, sillier stuff. That never gets old. But for the serious, grounded stuff, you really start to watch them for different reasons. There are a few exceptions to that. Last Shift, when I first saw that, it scared the shit out of me. I don't know. It was something about the concept for this story, for Last Shift and Malum, that them focusing on isolated horror. One main protagonist in nearly all of the shots, and it's typically just one person in the shots, and them poking with the psychological horror, poking at not only that main character's mental state and their psyche, but the audience's as well. Something about that just gets to me sometimes. And Last Shift, oh my god, when I was done watching that movie, I was so scared. Knowing that Malum is a remake and a higher budget one, and it was a theatrical release, so I wasn't by myself. I was with a crowd and everybody's munching on their snacks. I knew that they were going to be sacrificing some of the scares. They kind of replace it with a more grittier, darker, and not to say the Last Shift wasn't dark, but a darker, more on the theatrics of horror. They focus on the shock value, which is, again, that's something also horror fans I feel can appreciate. A lot of the scenes, I still was oh my god, even though I was expecting it, but just the delivery and that higher budget, it really gets to you still, and I was Jesus. So I appreciate that they knew that they were going with a different approach with the flavor. I love when remakes do that. They just give you, the same story, but just, different options depending on your mood. If you're craving that story, but you want something to scare you, or you want something to just be, entertaining, but in a grisly, shocking way, you have that option. And it's definitely, I think that's what Malum does. It's a great movie. You see the higher production and the special effects and the set pieces, the talent, there's more and more and more, and it's all a very sufficient and fine display of all of that. But he sticks to the roots, and he really balances between being a grounded supernatural horror movie and being a campy, dark, not campy silly, but a campy, dark horror movie. And he goes back and forth between that while maintaining kind of that lingering psychological horror that's in the first film. So it sticks to its roots. He expands on the story, which was his intended, idea for this remake. And he just offers, I guess a bigger budget version of Last Shift, which Last Shift was a great movie. This was a great movie. I'm going to rank it an 8 out of 10, which, fun fact, is what I rank The Last Shift. The only negatives I could think for this one are there were some scenes where some of the acting wasn't all that terrific. But other than that, like, it's a pretty solid, like, you know, kind of grisly, not necessarily scary, because the scares are predictable in this one, but like a more kind of grisly, like shocking, you know, supernatural movie, which we don't get too many of those often. Nowadays, it's always just the jump scares, just the same old stuff that we see in these movies. So it's weirdly refreshing to see that in today's day and age with supernatural movies. Anyways, thank you so much for sticking around. If you could like, comment, and subscribe, that would be fantastic. What did you guys think of Malum? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll catch you boys next time.